Hey, Zane Griggs here. So, sugar and starch affect more than just your weight. And just because your weight is where you want it to be or you're considered normal weight doesn't mean that you're immune to the negative effects of sugars and refined starches and processed starches. So, and what I mean by the effects, I'm talking about all the danger signs we're worried about for heart disease and diabetes. Or it's just a big misconception that that because you're normal weight that you're not going to be affected by eating these sugars and starches, and so you can eat more of them. You can eat all you want, just as long as you're normal weight, or as long as you still fit in your genes. That there's not some sort of negative effect, and that's just not true, because you can still have very high triglyceride levels, be developing insulin resistance. Have a low HDL to total cholesterol ratio because you want high HDL, or have a very high, very low density LDL. Okay, because there's certain LDL you're fine with. The fluffy stuff, the big fluffy LDL is good. That total, you look at HDL and LDL, that doesn't give you the picture. It's just a small, dense LDL that we're really worried about, and that is triggered by, along with the triglycerides, by a higher consumption of sugar and starch. And you may think, well, I'm not eating donuts all day. I'm talking about what we consider the normal American diet, standard American diet, which has been recommended for the last 60 years, with a diet of 50 to 60 or 70% carbohydrate. Okay, and you're not a college athlete. Okay, if you're not a college athlete or some sort of triathlete, okay, and even then you might be susceptible as we get older if you're eating sugar. But for the most part, for most normal people who aren't doing ultras, okay, ultra marathons, 50, 60, 70% carb in your diet is, even if it's the healthy kind, the healthy carb, quote unquote, you're going to be basically triggering, you're at risk for triggering these other risk factors, okay, that we consider for heart disease, that we used to blame on saturated fat. Okay, we used to blame the high triglycerides, the total cholesterol was such a scare, when it's really obviously not now. Avocados, coconut oil, the meat fat, those kind of things. Were eggs, egg yolks, the big villains of egg yolks, which are probably one of the most nutritious foods you can eat. We're blaming that for heart disease instead of what was really the problem, which is high sugar, trans fats, and overconsumption of starches. Okay, so why the mix-up? Well, 50, 60 years ago, when they did these so-called studies, when they came up with this theory, they based the theory on correlations. So they looked at 7 countries. The big one was this big 7-country study where they correlated, they have these certain types of diseases, and this is their typical diet. Okay, so there's no real study. There was no looking at people and in the course of how they ate and their blood work. It was just, well, this country seems to have a problem with this disease, and this is the way they generally eat, so this is our theory. Correlation does not create causation. Okay. It might point you in a direction to look closer, but there's nothing substantial in it. Okay? Whereas the most current studies over the last 20 years, several of them that looked at, each of them might have looked at tens of thousands of people, and many times in one community, okay, where they followed them for decades. They followed the same people for decades, and their generations, their offspring, for decades, in how they ate, okay, and their blood work, and what diseases they got. So whether they got heart disease, cancer, how soon they died, what kind of diabetes, those kind of things. They looked at diet and then the outcome of their diet on their lifestyle and their health. Those were much more substantial studies that gave us much more conclusive evidence that it's refined starches, processed starches, and sugars that lead to the high triglycerides, the small, dense LDL that we're worried about, the bad cholesterol, that we're small, dense LDL cholesterol, okay? And the insulin resistance, diabetes, heart disease, brain damage, basically, so brain aging, I should say, dementia, okay? So those are the things that came from the starches, not the fats that were vilified for these last 5 or 6 decades. So if you're going down that aisle and you see the cereal box with the it says low fat, heart healthy, big sunshine, or some kind of sun or a plant smiling at you, fiber, run. Don't just walk, run, get out of that aisle, get yourself to the produce aisle, and then get over to dairy and get some butter, okay, get some eggs. That's the stuff you want, not the refined starches, not all the low-fat yogurts with the sugar put in them, and the low-fat salad dressings with all the extra sugar put in them, because nothing tastes good low-fat, let's face it. So stay away from those. Move towards the natural fats, olive oils, eggs, coconut oils. Though avocados, awesome food, avocados. So that's a great way to supplement fat if you're looking for ways to remove these starches from your diet and replace them with good healthy fats. Avocado is a great way to start. And cooking with coconut oil, lots of eggs. Don't worry about whether you're eating light meat or dark meat this Thanksgiving. Go for the dark. It tastes better. Everybody knows it. Nobody really likes white meat. Go for the dark stuff, and have a little more fat in there. Feel a little more satisfied. So if you have questions about this, I'm sure there's questions for those of you who've never heard this before. But for those of you that have already started this, tell me. Comment below. What refined, so-called healthy starches, these low-fat, supposedly fibered processed, starches, or whatever kind of starch that was kind of your go-to starch, did you remove from your diet and replace with some healthy fats? I want to hear. Comment below and help us all out. Everyone learns, right? Share with the class, and let us know what you did to change that part of your diet and get you closer to a diet that has less inflammatory, okay, and actually more heart healthy because of the healthy fats you put in your diet. Talk to you later.